Here we are, almost at the start of the new TV season, and that's why it's a great pleasure to have somebody who will be very important to CFCF's lineup, Mary Hart from E.T. Mary, welcome. E.T. has a lot of admirers in the business for the sheer polish of the production and how it's all put together. It seems miraculous to those of us who don't work in Los Angeles. But it also has its detractors, and one of the criticisms that I hear a great deal about E.T. often is that you have reduced a story down to such a short time that somehow that meaning us, out there in the world, our attention span has now got to the point where that's all we can handle is a 2-minute story.
Or less.
Or less.
A minute and a half, 90 seconds, 60 seconds sometimes even.
Fair comment or unfair?
Well, it depends. I don't think E.T. can take sole responsibility for shortening the world's attention span. However, I must say that to my own dismay even, sometimes I go out and do what I consider to be a wonderful interview and you know, where I think, golly, we could use at least 10 minutes of that on the show. It doesn't fit into the format. It's too fast-paced. So to a certain extent that criticism is true, but it works. We are giving, to a large extent, the public what it wants. It's a very slick show. It's a wonderful technological package. It's a very fast-paced show, and we try to cover a little bit of everything. So some of it necessitates keeping the stories as short as possible. I mean, there are often days you walk into the studio and you've got 10 or 11 good news stories for the top part of the show, plus features that have already been promoted several weeks in advance that you've got to get in because you're promising people in the promotion that Clint Eastwood's going to be on the show. You got to live up to that. Very seldom can we be too flexible. What happens is to get everything in, if there have been a lot of developments overnight in various stories, you've got to trim, even if something is already set. Say you take a 3-minute piece that's a good interview, but boy, all of a sudden you've got an extra story coming in or something that breaks an hour before you start taping. You've got to cut the 3-minute story. There's no choice.
What happens when your job is to report on a particular area and suddenly you, because you are so prominent and so well known, become part of the story, that people begin to report on you, and then it might be entirely appropriate that because Mary Hart is reported to be, I don't know, seeing X or seeing Y, that's something that might otherwise get reported on the show. Do you find yourself beginning to wonder whether the cart is before the horse, or has that happened yet?
It hasn't been a problem. I have done a lot of it. I've been an interviewer for 10 years. I have also been interviewed with this show so many times now. I think it's made me more empathetic as an interviewer. When I ask other people questions now, I'm much more sympathetic to how they feel being asked the same thing perhaps over and over again, or when people delve into their personal, when I ask somebody about their personal life, I know what it feels like because I'm asked about mine a lot and written about, you know, whether I want to or not. Yes, because I'm on a highly visible show. I'm very visible myself. It hasn't come in the way. I don't think it will come in the way. It's a matter of how each one of us handles it, I believe. I know that at times I've gone out and participated in events where E.T. has even covered the story. And that's been more fun, though. For example, if as I was last year and the year before, in a celebrity ski race and happened to win or lose or fall or whatever it was, and we covered it, it's more for the fun, lighter tail end of the show.
Where did you come from? What were you doing before E.T.?
What was I doing? It seems like I've been doing the show for a long time. I can't remember. No, I started in Sioux Falls, South Dakota with my own show on cable television. It was called the Mary Hart Show, just a little public affairs program that I did once every 2 weeks. I was a high school English teacher at the time I started. Did that for 3 years and the television, and decided I really had a love for broadcasting, and it seemed to come fairly naturally. Doesn't mean there weren't nerves. It meant I was a nervous wreck and learning all the time, but it meant that I felt real good about what I was doing and was curious about exploring that. So I moved to Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and did more television, got out of teaching, then moved to Oklahoma City and produced and hosted a 5-day-a-week, half-hour live talk variety show. And after 3.5 years of doing that and a lot of theater, which I love to do, acting has always been an important part of my life, I moved to California to sort of take my chances.
I suppose that if you work in a television newsroom, to be the anchor of the CBS Evening News is probably that's the show you want to work on. And I imagine that for people in my position, E.T. is the, you know, at the back of our minds, that's the one that logically you would like to end up on. But for somebody like you who's there, what do you have to look forward to?
It's a good question and a difficult one. But like I said, one of my first loves, I consider myself a performer. Yes, I'm a broadcaster and I'm a broadcast journalist with the show, but there's the equally strong side, the performer side, and I have always nurtured the artistic talents, studying acting, singing, and dancing.
Life is not confined to E.T.
That's right. That's right.
You have other interests.
Yeah, and at some point, you know, I can see doing a television series because I would love to do that. But on the other hand, I enjoy very much what I'm doing now, and that has worked very, very well. In fact, it's just kind of odd that I wound up on this show because I came to California 5 years ago saying, well, I want to find out as much as I can about every phase of the business, and wow, here I am with, you know, the penultimate show to find out.
Mary, thank you so much. It's been a great pleasure. I hope you'll come back and visit us again.
Matthew, it's my pleasure being here, too. It's fun to do the show.
Okay. Entertainment tonight and entertainment this weekend. Every night, Monday to Friday, it's at 7 o'clock right here, CFCF Channel 12, Cable 11. I hope you'll watch, and I hope you'll watch me next time. I may not have such a glamorous guest, but I'll be here just the same. We'll see you next time.
Tonight at 7.